Hello and welcome to Son of a Glitch. Join us as we explore some of the internet's craziest glitch stories. Story 1. While walking through International Peace Gardens in Glendale, Utah, I noticed an elderly couple sitting on a bench facing away from me. As I walked around, I saw the sweet little lady get up and walk around some bushes by the path I was on. She passed me and said hi. I said hello back. As I walked around the bushes, the little old Hispanic man was still talking. He looked up at me and kind of giggled and said he was just talking to his wife. I replied, "Well, she just left to go to your car or something." I thought it was funny, this little old man still talking to himself, not realizing she had walked away. He looks at me and in his broken English, tells me that she left a couple years ago, that she died. Surprised, I said, "Wait, I just said hi to her." He immediately pulled out his wallet and showed me pictures of her and explained to me how that was their favorite place in the world. It blew me away and brought me to tears. I sat with the man for a few minutes while he showed me more pictures of her, and then his kids and his grandkids, and how proud and happy he was even though she was gone. He told me he still goes there because he can feel that she's there. I had to agree because those pictures were that sweet little old lady who said hi to as she passed me. Story 2. When I was a teenager, living in Vienna in the small country Austria, I excessively played The Sims. I created all kinds of families there with all kinds of crazy stories. Most of them were unrelated to anyone I knew, just straight out of my imagination. As the game got developed to the Sims 4 version, the details got very much on point when it came to creating your Sims. I was always very hesitant to create myself or anyone I knew because I would feel bad of anyone dying in the game as they would portray my real-life people. I also didn't want to put anything out there, if you know what I mean, like attract anything bad. With The Sims 4 though, I decided to create myself, with a different last name though, matching my Sims husband's last name. The husband was of color as my celeb crush was 50 Cent. I was 17 by the way. Was wearing a black tank top, camouflage pants, trainers, and a black watch. They lived a happy life together, had kids, and I made sure that they died peacefully as I did believe in attracting situation. I met my boyfriend 2 years ago, after I moved to London. We are in a very happy relationship. One day we were at a market and it was really hot, so I bought a dress so I can change into something more light, and my boyfriend bought some pants in thin material. He asked if I liked them and I turned, and it was some camouflage sweatpants. I said yes, and we proceeded to go home. We lived a minute away, to change. We changed our clothes and my boyfriend asked me if he looked good. I finished dressing up and looked at him to check his clothes, and he was wearing a black tank top, the camouflaged sweatpants, trainers, and a black watch I had just bought him as a present some weeks ago. I immediately realized he looked like my husband in the Sims I created years ago. I started laughing and told him, "You look like my Sim." He looked at me confused, and as I told him what I meant, he told me, "Oh, so you attracted me into your life," with a cheeky smile, and I guess he was right. That was my most glitch moment I have ever had, but I don't regret it all. Story 3. For a bit of context, my eyesight is horrible. Even half a foot in front of my face is nothing but blurry color. Yesterday my mom and brother picked me up to go to an appointment. I was running a little late, so didn't have time to put my contacts in / do my makeup and was getting ready on the drive. So while mom was driving, I was in the passenger seat with the mirror down. I took off my glasses to apply my eyeshadow. My brother, who was sitting behind me, asked me a question and I turned to look back at him. When I turned my head back around, I quickly finished my eyeshadow and shut the mirror. I was looking out my window at the farmland just off the road and thinking how beautiful it was when I suddenly realized that I hadn't put my glasses back on. They were sitting on the dashboard. As soon as I had the realization, my perfect vision went back to being just blurred colors. It was instant, like flipping a switch on my sight. It was so shocking that I yelled, "Holy shit." My outburst startled my mom and brother, so I told them what had just happened, and they said they believed me but couldn't think of a rational reason for it. We tried to figure it out for the rest of the drive, but honestly couldn't. TBH, if there's some secret to magically fixing my eyesight that I accidentally stumbled upon, then I wish I could find it again. Story 4. This odd glitch occurred when I was about 13 or close to. My family was moving into a new home. We were having trouble with a bookshelf that was a little too big, tall, and wide for the doorway. We eventually had to take it apart and bring it in piece by piece. The shelf went into my sister's room. She helped put it together. Here is the interesting part, as this glitch was experienced by my sister as well. Only more so. She used the shelf for her books and stuffed animal collection. I left her as she was putting things onto the higher shelves, using a kitchen chair to reach that high. As soon as I stepped through the door, there was a loud crash. I'm thinking the shelf fell on sis or she lost her balance and fell, so I check. She is standing with her back against the wall and looks terrified. I peek further in, and there is no shelf, it was completely gone. Her things heaped on the floor in that spot. The chair somehow teleported back into the kitchen. My sis and I are the only ones that heard the crash. Not one person in our family remembers ever having that bookshelf. Story 5. My husband recently took an overnight's job to help us out during COVID. He's only been there about 2 weeks and works evenings/overnights, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Last night was no different. He left home around 8:15 p.m. Our daughter, age 11, and I decided to make it a movie night. Around 11 p.m., I heard keys in my back door and the usual sounds my husband makes when he comes home. I creep out to the kitchen to make sure it was him, and it was. He told me he needed to grab his knee compression sleeve, walks down the hall, says hi to our daughter as he passes the living room, and goes upstairs. He came back down, gave me a kiss, and left again. We finished our movie and went to bed. In the morning when he got home, I made a joking comment about him forgetting his knee sleeve. He was genuinely confused as I recalled the previous night. Our daughter confirmed everything I said, and he still was acting confused. I pulled up our security motion camera on my phone to show him when he popped in quick. But there was no footage from the night before or any other night of him coming home after he's left for work. My daughter and I both heard him, saw him, and I touched him. But he was never home during that time. Nothing else out of the ordinary happened that night. We seriously have no idea what happened. Story 6. Hey, so this just happened, and I have had an eerie and weird feeling that something is not right. So first let me explain the placement of my house. When you come in, there is a little hall, and in front of you the bathroom. Then you go to the left, and you have a small kitchen. Then a door. Then it's my bedroom, but it's so big I turned it into a living room, and right next to my bedroom is my daughter's bedroom. Everything is in an L shape. I, 24 years, live alone with my daughter, 2-year-old, and our 2 pet bunnies. So I had lunch with my daughter, and it started getting cold and dark, so we went into my bedroom and closed the door to the kitchen. She always plays in my bedroom and her bedroom that are directly connected. I was reading some Reddit stories while listening to her making her usual noises, talking to herself, singing, asking me something, moving toys around, and the basic children noises. Suddenly the house goes completely silent, and after a few seconds I think that maybe she is being mischievous and doing something she isn't supposed to like all kids do, so I go check on her since I didn't see her from where I was laying. Let me make it clear that there is no way for her to go outside without opening the creaky door to the kitchen that is right in front of me, and she never tried to do it since the lights in the kitchen are off, and she is scared of the dark. So I look everywhere in her bedroom and start calling her name. Nothing, check in her closet, nothing, under her bed, in her little play tent, in her toy chest, under my bed, the sofa, my desk, everywhere, nothing, she is nowhere to be seen. Let's mention she has never tried to hide and stuff like that. She comes when she is called, so I started to freak out. I knew I didn't hear her leave my bedroom to the kitchen, but I checked anyways, nothing, the bathroom empty. Now I'm starting to panic. I go inside again and check everything over, and while I'm in her bedroom I hear crying from outside and look throughout my daughter's window to see her outside laying on the ground only wearing a t-shirt. Not the t-shirt she was previously wearing, but one of the t-shirts she does have. I ran aside almost falling over, but when I opened the door, silence. She wasn't there. There was no crying. Silence again. I go outside and check everything and can't find her or any trace of her being there. Defeated, I go back upstairs ready to call 911 when I go to my bedroom and see her calmly playing with some blocks in her bedroom. She was wearing her clothes as if she never disappeared. The t-shirt I saw her wearing outside was in her wardrobe neatly folded. I'm still in shock and sitting staring at my daughter, feeling that if I blink she might disappear again. Story 7. This is my first post, so bear with me, but after reading many other glitch stories, I wanted to share mine here. In early December 2015, my now ex-boyfriend's mother passed away in the home following surgery and other health problems related to her heart. She was born with a rare condition. Unfortunately, she went into cardiac arrest, and we were unable to save her, so the event in and of itself was extremely traumatic and unexpected. A couple of nights later, we decided to go see some friends who wanted to offer their condolences to my ex. Everyone loved his mom. We were all sitting in our friend's living room watching TV, and, to be honest, they were really trying to distract us from everything. One friend was just being her goofy self, and I was taking Snapchat videos, and I distinctly remember taking a video of, let's call her, Amy. I saved the video, but when I looked at my screen to watch it, it was not Amy. It was a grainy video with a background that appeared to be outside and 100,000% not in a living room, but on the screen was my ex's mom. She said the words, "I'm okay, baby. I'm okay," and multiple other friends saw it on my phone before it disappeared. She looked young and vibrant and has a huge smile on her face. Someone had tossed my phone to another friend across the couch to see, and the video then disappeared. When we watched the original video back immediately after, my ex's mom was gone. It was Amy in the video again, just like I saw it while recording it in the first place. My ex and his mom had a very close relationship, best friends really, so when we saw her on my screen letting him know she was okay, it was astounding. I saw it first, and everyone noticed I was visibly upset. I cannot imagine what went through my ex's mind and heart when he saw that, but to this day, it's something we talk about and something he shares with new friends. Something we simply cannot explain other than her coming through in a glitch to let us know she was okay. Story 8. I was running late for work this morning, while my wife was tending to our 1-year-old who is sick with a cold. She asked if I could stop at the Walgreens down the street to get him some cough medicine. I was in a huge rush but didn't want him to go without it, so I headed over there as quickly as I could. My wife and I were on the phone as I was driving and pulling into the parking lot. Street was busy and packed with cars, and as I was walking up to the store, I noticed a woman putting her screaming child into her car just outside the store. My wife was reminding me which medicine to buy as I checked my phone for the time, and that's when it got weird. The second I walked into the store, my phone turned off and the call dropped. The sliding door closed behind me, and the entire store was empty. The lighting was different than what I was used to, fluorescent and cold. There was no one at the front, and no one in any of the aisles I could see. I turned around to look outside, and there were no cars in the street, not even the woman who was just there 5 seconds ago. I actually said hello, twice loudly, feeling like this was some sort of horror movie I was in. The entire store was silent, and I go to grab my phone again to film this in case no one believed me, and of course it won't turn on. I turn the corner down a random aisle, and just like that there's people there. The lighting is different now and warmer. There was even music now. I turn to look at the front, and there is a customer mid-transaction with a checker. My phone starts working again, and my wife is calling me. She tells me it just went silent and said call failed. I stood there for a minute and realized there was nothing I could do but buy the medicine and go on with my day. I don't know if this was a glitch in the Matrix, odd and coincidental timing, or some weird parallel universe type stuff, but all I know is that it was strange as hell and I didn't really know who to tell this to. Story 9. So this event happened on October 7th, 2019 at 5:46 p.m., and I'll briefly try to describe it. I was on my way to running some errands, riding in my car while on the phone with this friend. I remember the weather being super weird, cloudy but hot. I don't really know how to describe it, but it felt like the air had some kind of heaviness to it. While I was talking to her, she said a few sentences to which I replied in agreement. Suddenly she starts saying the same exact sentences she just said 30 seconds earlier, only in a different tone and pace. It really sounded like she was repeating herself and not like the actual voice glitched and repeated, which is what made it even creepier. So at this point everything became fuzzy and weird, almost as if I lost sense of time. In the meantime I heard my messages ringtone going off a few times through the earpiece, but I decided to check them out later on. So I go on and tell her I'm pretty sure that she already said to me all of those things, and the most unsettling thing is that her voice would stop whenever I tried telling her, as if she was actually listening, but would continue on as soon as I'd go silent, without saying anything regarding the fact she was repeating herself over and over. It was like talking to someone who was purposely trying not to answer. It felt incredibly odd, especially considering each sentence was slightly different than the previous one, but the meaning kept on being the same. That's when I lost her completely. The line gets cut off and I go check the messages I received earlier. Turns out they were actually from her. 2 of them were missed calls, and the last one said I should call her back as soon as I could. I was still actively talking to her, while at the same time, she was asking me to call her back. Definitely one of the most bizarre things that's ever happened to me. Story 10. So my dog died around 2 years ago. He was a golden lab mixed with a German shepherd, lived to about 12 years old, and we had to sadly put him down as he had bladder cancer. Due to his bladder cancer, and due to being a dog I guess, He would bark in the night to be let out to pee in the backyard. It was always my dad who would be the one to hear him and let him out, since his bedroom window overlooked the back door. So a year after my dog's death, my dad is awoken at about 3 a.m. by my dog's distinct, "Let me out to pee," yelp, and groggily stands up and starts walking to go let him out. My dad getting up wakes my mom up, who asks my dad where he is going. To let the dog out. Cue mom telling dad that dog has been dead for a year, my dad confusingly remembering / snapping awake to the present, and then turning around to walk back to bed. The next morning, my mom remembers that it is the anniversary to the day of my dog's death. I'd hoped to think he was just letting us know that he's okay. The 2-year anniversary of his death is coming up in a few months. Maybe we'll hear from him again. He was a good boy. Story 11. I believe my cat gave me his blessing when I got a new kitten. He was my childhood cat. I had him from the time I was 6 years old until I was 19. It took me about 6 years before I got another cat. I had tried a few times, but it always felt like it wasn't right. That was my cat, and it was hard to imagine another cat as mine. When I did eventually get a kitten, I had him for a few weeks, and I was playing with him in a room I set up for him. The new kitten was right in front of me. Then there was a thump behind me, and I felt a cat rub up against my back. I turned around, and there was nothing there. I feel and hope that was my old cat letting me know he's happy and okay with me getting this new cat. I felt at peace when I saw there was nothing behind me. Story 12. Okay, firstly I'm on mobile, so yada yada. So, a year or so back I had a friend request of someone on Facebook, and so did my husband. I had no idea who she was. Didn't recognize her photo, etc. My husband was the same. As she had lots of mutual friends, including my father-in-law, I accepted it. Here's the weird thing. She apparently went to church, youth club, and most church events with both of us. She is the same age as us. Went to school with my husband and his sister. Everyone else knows her. Except us. I drudged through her Facebook looking for photos of her as a teen. No recognition at all. I literally have no memory of her. Same as my husband. But she vividly remembers us. Recounting stories about things we used to do together, etc. I remember the things we did. But not her. Here's where it gets stranger. I found an old address book with her name, phone number, and address in it from that time. And she has photos of us all together. She is literally our glitch in the Matrix. Story 13. 5 years ago, my best friend died within a 2-week span, unexpectedly. We had a wake for him following the service, at a friend's house in the country. I'm sitting in a lawn chair, just before dusk, my first drink in my hand. There was a guy taking photos of everyone, and I happened to look over at a group with 5 guys in back, for in front getting their photo taken, by the corner of the house, about 15 to 20 yards away. I looked over to see who I might know, and in the back row on far left was my deceased best friend, wearing a red shirt, with his arms crossed, with a big smile on his face. I looked down to put my drink down, looked back up, and he was gone. I said nothing that night to anyone, but it had rattled me. The next day, I called one of our friends, Keith, who had known him for many years, and I told him something was bothering me, that I had seen my friend last night. He answered, "You mean over by the corner of the house, back row on left, in back row, of the guys getting their picture taken? In the red shirt, smiling at you with his arms crossed? And when you look back, he was gone. I saw him too." To this day I have no explanation, but I don't doubt that there is another plane of existence after this one, and that image has brought me peace over the years. An update for you guys. About 2 months ago, the mother of my deceased friend mentioned above called me extremely excited. I asked her what was going on. She said Dan had a daughter he never knew about. Dan's cousin took the 23 DNA test a couple of months ago, and it matched with a family member in California that we didn't know. The cousin reached out to this woman, and we found out that in 1983, Dan had a child with a girl in college when he was a senior. The woman, who was a freshman, went back to her home county, thinking it was her boyfriend's. She gave her up for adoption, and ended up across the state with a very loving family. She went to the same college you did, and then moved to California, and is married with 2 children, a twin boy and girl. I had to sit down. My deceased best friend died 6 years ago, not knowing he was a father of a 36-year-old woman and a grandfather. His daughter had decided to take the DNA test on the island of Kauai a few years ago, on the advice of a spiritual man who told her to seek out her past, that she had wondered about for years. The same place his ashes were scattered. The woman has been to see my friend's mother and sister, and his mom plans a trip to CA to see her grandkids in the near future. I've spoken to her a few times, and we keep in touch often. I plan on meeting her in person when she comes back for one of our college reunion weekends, and I can hardly wait. The universe is stranger than we can imagine. I feel like a part of him still lives through her and her children. Story 14. Due to the pandemic, she's working at home, and every midday she goes to our parents to take the family dog out for a walk. So yesterday she went to take Jazz, and there was no Jazz. He was nowhere to be found. Our dad was grocery shopping, and our mom was in the kitchen. When she asked her if Jazz was with our father, our mother asked her who was Jazz. Long story short, there was no dog. Apparently after the death of our first dog, we didn't take another. Thinking of a strange prank, which is not typical of our parents. They are not pranksters and they are in their 80s. She searched the house, and she couldn't find anything suggesting the presence of a dog. No dog food, no dog bed, no dog toys, which he has plenty and are always everywhere. Then our dad came home, and still no dog. When she interrogated him, he started to think that she was the one who was joking. At the same time, from the kitchen TV, she heard the news reporter talking about the end of the pandemic and the surge of something she couldn't understand. This morning she said to me that the reporter didn't seem very preoccupied for the surge of whatever it was, because word she can't hear would take care of it. She was so agitated that she also warned me that maybe she didn't understand well. After that she returned home because she didn't want our parents to see her while she was freaking out, and she tried to call me, because while she is indifferent to these kind of events, she knows I'm a believer, and she wanted me to join her and try to understand what was happening. And then I was nowhere to be found. My cell phone wasn't active, and she couldn't even reach the shop where I work. They simply didn't answer the phone, which is quite improbable, because except when it's close, for us to answer the phone is mandatory. She tried with some of my friends too, with no success. After that she went to bed and cried until she fell asleep. This morning I found 16 calls from her, with today's date. I called her back worried that something had happened, and she was crying. She is still very agitated, and she took Jazz at her home because she wanted him to spend the night with her. She also confessed me that yesterday she couldn't muster the courage to call our parents or relatives and ask about me because she was too scared they would tell her she was an only child. At the moment she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, and obviously I keep asking myself what was that. My parents told me that yesterday they didn't see her at all. They tried to call her at midday for the dog, but her phone was mute, and they concluded that maybe she was busy. They thought it was strange her phone was mute, but they didn't investigate it. This is all. I keep wondering where Jazz and I were, and what the news was talking about. Maybe in another universe, if my sister was not hallucinating, but she never had these kind of problems, the events are evolving faster and better. I'm so curious, but she's still too freaked out to talk about it again. Story 15. I am a sales manager at a very well-known auto parts store. Our store is kind of on the smaller side, so we typically only have 2 people working at a time. We sometimes order parts directly from our vendors for customers if they're for rare or classic cars, and thus something we don't need to stock. When the parts come in, we call the customer to let them know they're ready for pickup. Today we received a call from one of our regulars. I answer and he says, "Hey, I see I just missed 2 calls back to back from you guys. Are my parts in?" I let him know we haven't received our truck yet, and neither me or my co-worker have made a call all day. I even checked the recent calls and verify no outgoing calls have been made since yesterday evening. He informs me he's on his cell phone and looking at the 2 missed calls in his log as we speak. We talk about how weird that is and hang up. Within 5 minutes, his parts show up. I go to call him back, and after the first ring accidentally end the call. I immediately hit redial, and as soon as the phone begins ringing, it dawns on me that I've just called him twice back to back. He didn't answer, and I'm still wondering what happened. Story 16. Let me start by saying this will be long. My heart is already beating fast telling this story. Only those closest to me know that this happened until now. When I was 25 years old, I was driving home from work one night. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. I was driving on Sunset Boulevard, heading west towards my apartment in Brentwood. For those that are not familiar with the area, there is an expanse of sunset near UCLA that is very curvy. It is 2 lanes on either side with no shoulder. It was 8:30 on a Saturday night, so there was some traffic. I was driving along and all of a sudden about 50 feet in front of me, I saw a car, but I was looking at the passenger door. A car had spun out of control and was perpendicular in my lane. I didn't have time to stop. I looked to my right and saw there was a car next to me, so I had nowhere to go. I instinctively turned my car all the way to the right anyway. Once I had cleared the first car, I spun it all the way to the left, still trying to avoid the second car. While all of this was happening, I remembered a time with my mom at Disney World when I was 3. This is not a memory I have ever had. I vaguely remember parts of that trip, but this memory was not one of them. I realized then that my life was flashing before me, and I was going to die. I had never been so sure of anything. Every part of me knew I was about to die. I started screaming. To this day, I don't know if I vocalized anything, or it was all in my head. I yelled, no, this isn't fair. I'm not done yet, all the while swerving all over Sunset Boulevard. I suddenly stopped my car, and I was now perpendicular in the opposing lane of traffic. I looked around, and there was not a single car anywhere. It was like everything had been wiped clean. I put my car in reverse and proceeded home. I did not see a single car the rest of the way. I was only 5 minutes away from home at that point, but Sunset Boulevard on a Saturday night was completely empty. I got to my apartment and parked on the street. I didn't see one person. While walking to my apartment, I came to the conclusion that I had died, and because I said no, I was stuck in some limbo. I had never wanted my roommate to be home so badly. Unfortunately, she wasn't. I called one of my best friends and said, "I need to ask you some questions. Please just answer me, and I will explain after." I asked her my name, my age, what city we lived in, and the date. Obviously, she was very alarmed. I explained that I thought I was dead, and I wasn't sure I was really on the phone with her. She tried to convince me that I was alive and that everything was okay. There was no way mathematically to escape it. There was nowhere for the car on the right to go. This moment has haunted me my whole life. There have been times when I have questioned my existence. I've wondered if my life, since has been a very detailed death trip, and I'm actually lying on Sunset Boulevard bleeding out. After many years of meditation, spiritual practice, and belief in quantum physics, I wonder what life I jumped into. Story 17. I don't know if this counts as a glitch in the Matrix, or what, but we have been having some strange and scary phenomena lately. The first thing we started noticing were small things like duplicates. We would see someone somewhere only for them to inexplicably end up somewhere else. For example, my mother and I saw and chatted with an old friend at the grocery store, and when we arrived home later we saw on Facebook that his person was out of the country on vacation and had been for a few days. They have no memory of speaking to us either. Another time my mother and brother were leaving a doctor's office when they saw a crazy old woman in smelly, tattered clothes enter the office and start speaking with the receptionist. While she was talking, my mother and brother got in the elevator and went down to the lobby from the 3rd floor. Upon exiting the elevator, they saw that the same crazy woman was in the lobby waiting for the elevator to go up. Sometimes it would be an event aired live on Facebook that we had already seen days prior, or a child celebrating their birthday twice with the same exact party and photos. I've taken phone calls that were duplicates of calls I had already taken with the other person swearing we hadn't spoken yet. The scariest thing, though, has been the deaths. There have been 4 deaths in our community of very well-known and influential people, and every one of them has died twice. We hear about their deaths and see all the RIP posts on Facebook. We see the community fundraisers put on to raise money for the funerals, and even see the cars at the church or funeral home, only for these same people to die a week or 2 later, and all the RIP posts and fundraisers happen again. Only our family seems to notice these things happening. My mother and siblings and my 2 kids. We don't know what's happening, and it is starting to scare us. Does anybody have an idea of what's going on or how we should deal with it? We are scared.